Hi, this is Professor Brew. Hope you guys are enjoying your semester so far. This is a demo on line weight to follow up the demo on the sketchbook assignment, Project 1, The Many Faces of an Object. So I have my scissors here that I've drawn, but I want to redo this line for you so that you can see how I got there, and then I'm going to add line weight. So the line that you're looking at right now is pretty much a single thickness, one-dimensional line that I usually call a coloring book outline, because it's the same thickness all the way around. It's not showing any indication of light or depth. This is going to be the first step that you are going to create in using line weight. So I've got my kneaded eraser here. I've got a plastic eraser, and I have 3 sharpened pencils, dark wing Palomino pencils. This is the pearl, it comes in gray, and then this is the black. I don't have a gray one. I like the pearl is, as I said before, is like a 2B, 4B softness of lead, and the black is a 6B, 8B softness, and those are my favorites. Okay, so I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and I'm going to stretch it and clean it up a little bit, and then I'm going to roll it up into cylinder kind of. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it over the line that I've created. So I'm just going to lift this line a little bit, and then I'm just going to trace over it. When I drew this, I sight measured these angles here. I saw that there was a dimension here. So really it's like a box, okay, that has a side to it or a front to it, and it's divided up. And then when I finished with my gesture, found my angles, and then I did a direct drawing. A direct drawing is where you work from, say, left to right or right to left, top to bottom, side to side. I'm gonna go little bit here, so I'm drawing top to bottom, side to side, and then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to take that sight measure again, and I'm going to go a little ways, and then I'll go a little bit more down. And I'm not adding any line weight right now. I'm just doing a nice, even, smooth line, and I'm not using a jagged line. I'm using a very smooth, clean line. Yeah, you make a mistake, you can erase. I want to go right back into that line. I want to keep it nice, this dimension nice and even, and it lines up with this top part of the handle. This line is inside here or outside here, then it's going to make the scissors look funny. It's going to make it look like they don't work. This needs to line up with this, so I can see that from this bottom part of the handle to this part of the blade needs to go about here. So I need to go back and make that correction. See, this little area right here is going to come out. So that's a little bit sharper of an angle than what I had. So you've got to be prepared to go back and make changes, and you also need to begin to learn to see mistakes. So you might ask me, what's the best way to find a mistake? How do you know you're making a mistake? Well, you can figure out that you're making a mistake by holding your drawing up to a mirror and looking at it, or by photographing it and then flipping it horizontally or vertically. So I'm going to continue here, and you notice that I'm working top to bottom, side to side, and I'm including all the dimensions that I see. And if I start to get uncomfortable, I'm going to turn my paper instead of turning my hand. And even at this point, I'm looking at my scissors, and I'm noticing that this was a little rounder than what I had. So I'm not trying to figure out the light at this point. I'm simply finishing a rendering of this object. So a rendering is a drawing that is a very precise, neat drawing of an object or figure. Okay, so there's my scissors. It's a kind of a coloring book line weight. Now I'm going to start using my eraser to lift for light areas and make the line skinnier if I need to, or make the line thicker where there's shade. So I pretty much have a single light source here, and it's a window that I'm using. So I can see in my scissors that in areas like this, it's in shadow. In areas here, it's in shadow. It's a bit in shadow here and on this side. So the top is pretty much in light, and the sides coming toward me are in shadow. But since I'm not using a shading technique to add value, I'm going to be using a line to add value. So line weight to add value, or light and dark and depth. I need to be able to make my line thin to thick or thick to thin, and I need to pay attention to areas that are catching the light and areas that are in shadow. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to think of your line weight like a rubber band. So I've just happened to have a rubber band right here. So here's a rubber band, and you can see that it's a single thickness all the way across, right? Okay, there's no doubt about that. So my line is a single thickness all the way across. So when I stretch it, you notice that it gets thinner in the middle, but it's thick on the ends. So a line sort of acts like that. So for example, I'm going to use my softer pencil. You notice it's got a nice sharp. All three of my pencils are sharpened. Why? Because if one breaks, then I can just pick up and use another one. If they all three break, then I need to stop and sharpen, but I don't like interrupting my train of thought. Now I'm looking at this line right here, and I'm seeing right in here, it's in deep shadow. So I am going to add, notice I'm holding my pencil back a little bit, and I'm holding it on the side, and I'm going to add a thicker, see, I just broke a pencil. Kind of glad that happened, because then you can see I can just pick up another pencil and go and continue drawing. So I'm going to add a thicker line here that is going into shadow, very thick here, nice, thick, and smooth. But then as it comes around this curve, it gets a little thinner. So notice now I'm going more toward the point of my pencil. And then right here in this curve, it gets light. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to lighten and thin out that line with my eraser. So I want that to be gradual. I don't want it to just go from thick to thin all of a sudden. And then over here, this is light as well. So right in here, it's catching the light. So I'm going to make that thin. So I'm going from thin, it's going to get a little thick right here underneath, light to thick. And I just need to keep it nice and clean. So this line here is describing an outside edge, and that's a primary contour line. This line in here is a secondary contour line. It's not only expressing dimension, but it's also expressing a detail, and it is catching the light. Most lines that are secondary contour lines are thinner than exterior contour lines or primary contour lines. Okay, just so that you know that. Here, I've got a secondary contour line, and it's going to be a little thicker because it's in shade, but not as thick as this line here. The main takeaway is that inside lines are thinner than outside lines, and that you want to have a gradual reduction of the line as it stretches out and goes into the light. So now this top edge is in shadow. It gets thinner as it goes into the light, and then as it comes into here, it goes into shade, because this whole thing is in shade. So I want that to be dark. This is in shade, and then it comes out into the light. This line right here is also in shade. So it's going to be in deep shade here. As it stretches, it's going to get a little thinner, but it's still in shade. So it's going to be, this is going to be thicker than this. And then as it goes into that curve, it's going to go into shade again, like that. So that's going to be nice. That's going to be a little thinner than this. So if I need to build that line up, I can. This inside line is in shadow, but it's an inside line, so it's not going to be as thick as any of the outside lines, but it has to be darker. And then this line here is catching the light. So I'm going to lift it, and now I'm going to break it up a little bit. Same way with this line. I'm going to take this line away a little bit, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go long. I'm going to break it up, medium, short, short, like that. So it shows that there's light there. And then this inside line is going to be a little darker, but not as thick as the outside line. This is in deep shadow here, deeper than this. So it's going to be really dark. I'm going to keep this the same. I'm going to keep this really thin and light. In fact, I'm going to lift it a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to also lift this here. This is an inside line that's just showing that there's a dimension. So I'm going to lift that. Okay, there's a shadow on this side here. So I'm going to go dark and thick and then get thinner as it goes around. So you can imagine what all this is teaching you is how to control your line. We don't want to work with anything but line here. Got another heavy, thick line. As I come into this curve here and go out to this curve, this gets thinner and lighter. So I'm lifting. Under here, it's in shadow, and then it comes out of the shadow, and then it goes into the shadow again, and then it's thin there. On this side, it's an inside line. It's a dark line because it's in shadow, but it can't be as thick as this line. This line on top of here is slightly lighter and thinner. So I'm going to take away a little bit and then go back in with a sharp point and break it up. I just mean that I'm using a broken mark. So it's like a, broken. So I'm going to come through here. This is a bit thin and stretched out, but it's dark because it's in shadow. This in here is also dark. Dark, dark, as it goes into this corner here, thins out, and then gets dark in here. So you see how pretty that starts to look. Now it's time to do the blades. Now the blades are metal. They're going to be more contrasty, but the lines are going to be thinner. So I'm going to want to sharpen my pencil. Now I'm ready to do the blades. I'm going to turn this to an angle that's a little bit more comfortable for me. I'm looking at this blade right here. You always draw what's closest to you, that the corner of the blade is going to be darker, and then it's going to get lighter as it goes here through the middle where the light catches it, and then it's going to get a little bit darker. So I'm going to want to lift this line in here and break it up. This dimension is in shadow. So this line is dark here and here on the bottom. Thicker on the outside contour, and it lines up right back here. And then thinner, but still dark on this side because that's in shadow. Same thing here, we've got this bottom line. Do not use shading, only line, and that's going to be dark. And then this little guy right here, this top line here is light. Thin out that line and use my softer pencil here to break it up. This line here is in light, so I want to also thin that out and break it up. So I've got some even lines here, so I'm going to make this a little longer and that medium. Okay, so let's see if there's any place else where I need to make a change. Okay, So that is it for line weight, and you can see how really nice these look. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you in class. Bye.